G'day everyone, welcome to Hub Highlights. Today we are talking everything micro sprays. In particular, the sprays themselves and how we use them, the different styles of sprays, and let's jump into it. First off, start by looking at the stake. This is where your micro spray gets basically attached. Up here we have this is where your micro spray will actually get screwed into. We also have a barb connection. And on this particular stake, which is a feature that I love, is it's actually got a spike there so that you can puncture your hole. Now, this is important, into low density poly. We can't use this with high density poly because the wall is too thick. But with low density poly, we can use this stake, punch a hole through it, and then plug our barbed fitting, and that is a complete micro stake. Now all we need to do is add our spray. So let's jump in and have a look at all the different varieties of sprays and how we use them in our garden. With this micro spray, we're going to start off with a strip spray. Now, the colors will vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, but with this particular strip spray, it's a wide strip spray. It's blue and it's got wings either side. It helps you to screw that into your stake. So once that's in there, this micro spray, being a strip spray, as I mentioned before, will actually spray either side. So it won't spray out the front and it won't spray towards the back. It will spray out to the side. And because I said it was a wide spray, it will actually go out like a V. So the Spectrum is one of my favorites. The Spectrum has a water throw like an umbrella. It starts from the center and comes out. The distance that it throws is 1 meter in diameter and it's adjustable. So you can go from a meter right in to nice and close if you're dealing with like a shrub at the end of a garden. One of the greatest spots to use these are the ends of the garden, and it will create a nice circle covering that last plant, which sometimes lacks a little bit of water by the time you spread out your micro sprays. We've got another little micro spray here, and this is probably the most common micro sprays that we use, the 180 degree spray, which means that it throws either side and it throws out 180 degrees. Really good micro spray. And another point to take note, this is helpful. When you're selecting micro sprays, make sure you select micro sprays that allow you to have a bigger droplet. These ones we use, which is an Intelco micro spray, does just that. The droplets are bigger, which means that if you're in an environment which is a little bit more windy, the droplets aren't affected as much. If you have micro sprays, and there are a lot of cheaper versions that do this, they tend to mist, which means the water, when it's sprayed out, half of it gets blown away, even under a light breeze. So the bigger droplets will work in your advantage, especially when we're trying to get water to the ground quickly. Here's a micro spray that we don't often use, and it's actually a mister, but it's got an added feature. It's actually got a little valve here that allows you to control how much mist comes out. You can get this valve across other micro sprays, but they're one piece. So it's not like an additional piece to a micro spray, they are bought as one piece. So if you do see them and you are looking for a micro spray that you can adjust, then look for something that has a valve, in-valve micro spray. You can control this micro spray just by twisting, and that opens and closes a little valve inside. What I love about this micro spray is that it's a 360 spinner. The 360 spinners usually have a lot larger throw. They throw up to 4.5 meters, and they also have a lighter droplet. These micro sprays are really good for areas that are open, where you might have a spread of plants, flowers, perennials. You want to cover a larger area, and you don't want that sort of harsh impact from your water droplet onto your flower. The spinners, when they're used in a fairly large capacity, does just that. We spoke about the wide strip spray. Here's its little brother, the narrow strip spray. Actually made by two completely different manufacturers, but this is the Intelco version of their strip spray, and it focuses on narrow gardens. Looks very similar to a lot of the other micro sprays, but different color. Color is an indication in relation to flow rates. So greens, reds, blues, they all use slightly different amounts of water. So a lot of these micro sprays that we've looked at is what they call a two-part micro spray. You can also get single micro sprays, which means that the whole micro spray is molded out of one bit of plastic. But we prefer the two-piece. Why? Remember how I was talking about the colored bases, the greens, the blues? We can actually change the bases out to get the required outcome. So if we don't have as much water, we could swap the bases to a different head. Another great benefit of micro spray irrigation is that our gardens are ever evolving. Our plants are growing, they get taller, they cluster up a lot more, which means micro sprays need to change, they need to adapt. And another great feature that with the micro sprays, and especially the stakes, is that you can actually extend the height of them by adding a solid peak poly riser. Here's another variety of stake. They call this the Aster stake. Now this is a two-part stake, and they play their role when you're dealing with an evolving garden like we mentioned before. The beauty about the Aster stake is that, like I said, it's two components. You've got your riser, your poly riser. You can get these in different sizes, and hint, you can even just cut them down if they're too big. And then you've got your stake, which is basically a support for your riser. The stakes just clip in, and the beauty of it is you can adjust the height. So if your garden is growing, you can pull up your riser to the height that suits. So to install your micro spray into an Aster stake with a 450mm riser, all you do is you get your micro spray. Here I've got the strip, and you can see that this one has a thread on it, which is ideal for the rigid riser. The thread essentially cuts into the rigid poly, and that becomes your micro spray. Undo it and you can change it out. Handy tip, if you do undo your micro spray and the stake is a little old, cut off the top and recut your thread in. It just means that your micro spray is going to stay there longer. Okay, now how do we connect this to the pipe? You remember how our stake actually had a tube attached to it. This does not. Now, there's actually a very important lesson to learn here. You'll notice that this rigid riser has a threaded connection. That means that we cannot put 4mm poly tube. If you haven't seen the poly video, check out YouTube, and it explains a little bit more about this. But we can't put this tube onto this fitting because threaded is meant for rigid risers, for hard poly, not for soft poly. If I was to put that in, I could easily screw that in, and over time, that would just come apart. This fitting here is a barbed fitting. The barbed fitting can be used in soft poly because it's got a wider head. It's also a little more difficult to get on, but a handy hint, if you're in winter, have a little cup of warm water. Dip your tube in the warm water and it will slide on a lot easier. Here, I won't be able to pull that off. That barb is holding that poly really tight. And also, if that is exposed to the sun, you'll find that that connection will last a lot longer than a threaded fitting, which is not designed for soft 4mm poly. Micro sprays also have other fittings that are included. So here we've got a pot stream, we have a little dripper, and we have a spider, or an octa-8, they call it. Basically, this has eight little streams that come out of it, and that's why they call it the octa-8. Now, what you'll notice about all of these little micro sprays is they actually are built with a spike. That means that you can go straight into a pot. And in this example, the pot stream is an ideal scenario on how it works. The pot stream goes straight into your pot. The 4mm tube comes up the side of the pot, and then your water will shoot out into your pot, and it's adjustable as well. So it also allows you to reduce and increase the water flow going to your sprinkler. So another great one. These ones here, like I said before, the octa-8 has 8 little jets of water that come out. So that's a great one if you've got a lot of plants. The Octa 8 is also adjustable, which means once again, you can increase and decrease the diameter of the arc. This little guy is a dripper. So what happens is we put our 4mm tube on, and inside it reduces the flow of water down to a drip, which means that if you do have a drip line but you want to extend that drip line out to a particular plant, potentially this is a great option for you. The key thing to know and to remember is make sure your drippers, how much water they emit, all line up. You don't want your drip emitter to be doing 3 litres an hour over here and 2 litres an hour over here, because they're not going to be dripping at the same amount, which means your plants don't get equal amounts of water. On the other hand, if you're working in an area that is drought tolerant, but you want one plant to have more water, then you can select drip emitters that have a higher flow rate, which means they get more water and your more drought resistant plants get less water. So it is quite adaptable and a great solution. So we've only just scraped the surface of micro spray irrigation. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and guys, we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for joining us.